Defending yourself, expressing your opinion, having a different opinion than somebody else is not abuse.
In my head.
Hey everybody, tonight we're going to talk about what is not abuse, because I've done a lot of talking on this channel about what is abuse, because this is a topic that I'm very passionate about, but we need to see the counterpoint to that. So what is not abuse? Because there is something that I see going on very often. You know what, let's just get right into this. Very often I see people who have been abused, they go on to develop post-traumatic stress disorder or a personality disorder or something along those lines, and then they go and they start abusing other people. And this is like a thing that it's science has not caught up completely to this yet, but it kind of intuitively makes sense that, you know, if you were abused, let's say as a child, you grow up, you become abusive, you abuse your child, and it just keeps going in a circle. So what I find is that a lot of people who have been through abuse, they turn around and they start abusing other people, and they don't see that their behavior is abusive, and they always see the other person as the problem. And this black and white thinking is a problem in itself, to not be able to see the gray area in between, and to see how our own actions may play a role in what's going on. And I'm not victim blaming here, let's be clear. I think that every victim should be taken care of, and every abuser should be held accountable for what they've done, and that will bring us further in stopping the cycle of abuse that continues on and on and on again. But if we are the victim and we start abusing others, we are now an abuser, and we should also be held accountable for our actions. So that's what I would like to talk about. Okay, I gotta try to make this quick because it feels like it could rain around here. So, one thing that is not abuse. Disagreeing with you is not abuse. Having a different opinion than you and expressing that opinion is not abuse. People can have a different opinion, even if it's a racist opinion, even if it's a prejudiced opinion, even if they say that they think violence is a good thing. Like, whatever that opinion is, expressing that opinion and having it be the opposite of your opinion does not make it abuse. Maybe I should clarify quickly that abuse is a repeated pattern over time, because if it wasn't repeated, then we would all be abusive. Everybody has name called, everybody has done something a little bit manipulative to somebody. You know, every child has especially tried to manipulate their parents to get something that they want, not caring about what that parent actually wants for themselves. So we all have done some kind of behavior that would fall under the heading of abusive. It's just that we don't do it as a pattern. It's not our natural way of life. I shouldn't say natural. It's not our way of life. But I see a lot of people who, once somebody disagrees with them, once somebody says something different than what they believe is true, they get triggered because I guess they feel like their identity is threatened. Because I know for myself, whenever I feel like my identity is being threatened, that kind of brings out the ire in me. My face turns on fire and my eyes glow, and I get really angry when I feel like somebody's threatening my identity in some way. And so yes, I will get aggressive and I will get a little bit hostile in defense of myself, but that is not abuse. Defending yourself, expressing your opinion, having a different opinion than somebody else is not abuse. Something else that is not abuse: if you are in some sort of a group or somebody's home, or you are participating in an organization and they decide that they don't want you there anymore, that your values don't match with their values, it's not a match, and they decide to either silence you in some way or remove you from that organization, that's not abuse. Now, if it was a government doing that to you, or if it was a grouping of organizations completely shutting you out, that would be abuse. But if you live in a free society where you have free speech, it's not abuse for somebody to say, I don't want you to speak this way here, you're not allowed here. That's totally acceptable, because they have a right to their property, they have a right to their space, and they're allowed to manage that space as they want, just as much as you're allowed to manage your home. You know, people can't just come into your home and move your furniture around and eat your food. It's the same kind of thing. If somebody doesn't agree with what you're saying, their values and your values don't align, they're allowed to silence you. They're allowed to say, no, this is not okay here. Especially if they made it clear that part of the rules of wherever they are say you can't be doing this here. So that's not abuse. That's having boundaries. Here's another one. Not validating you is not abuse. Not everybody in life has to validate your experience. Now, granted, if you've been through abuse, people should validate you. Of course, that's part of how you're going to heal. However, not everybody in life is responsible for you, and you can't expect everybody to validate you. If they invalidate you, that's another story. And again, they may be doing this accidentally. It's only abusive if it's a pattern of invalidating you. But if somebody, how do I say this? The absence of validation is not abuse. It's when somebody consistently invalidates you that you're being abused. So where I'm getting at here is, I get into a lot of fights online. People who have known me, I've been on the internet since basically it was popular, since the old Prodigy and AOL CompuServe, all those days, and I have been engaged in arguments since then, and I have learned how does an argument typically go and whatnot. And so I argue with a lot of different people, and when you're in the middle of arguing with somebody, they're not going to validate your side, of course, because they have a different view. They have different values. They disagree with you. There's no reason for them to validate you. So it's not abuse for them to not agree with you. It's not abuse for them to not validate how you feel. Alright, well, it started drizzling and now it's pretty much full-on raining. So one more thing that is not abuse is somebody lacking empathy for you. Somebody's not going to have empathy for you if they don't agree with your side. That's just like the nature of it. If you believe in abortion and somebody else does not, they're not going to have empathy for your feeling of that abortions are correct. That's just the nature of having different opinions in the world. So not everybody has to have empathy for what you feel, what you think is right, and what is your worldview. And in essence here, you can't control everybody in the world, and not everybody's going to agree with you. And I find that a lot of people who've gone through trauma, they try to get the world to agree with them. I've done this myself, so guilty, like I've been there. You try to get everybody to do everything your way because that makes the world feel safer. It makes you feel like you're more in control of the world and that you can rest your defenses a little bit. But that is controlling behavior, and controlling behavior can become abusive behavior when it's repeated as a pattern over time towards one person. I've been in arguments where I have seen people pick one person out or a group of people out, and then they target them. They start slandering them, calling them names, saying that they're manipulative, saying that they're liars, saying that they're this, that they're that. Meanwhile, what I've read in the conversation, I didn't see any of that going on. And then they go and start spreading this out to other people, starting effectively a smear campaign. They may even start gaslighting the other person, telling them that they said something different before than they did now. And it's probably because that person who is making all these accusations, they are triggered. They're feeling PTSD. They see the other person as some sort of an attacker, like I mentioned, maybe an attack on their identity. And so they're externalizing their anxiety and their symptoms inside, and they're projecting it all out onto that other person. And, I have videos about emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is definitely real. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying that's not true. And being a victim of abuse is also real. So I'm validating that here. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying abuse doesn't happen. I'm not saying emotional abuse isn't real, but I'm saying we have to be clear on what emotional abuse is. Because when we focus on the wrong things, we can't heal. When we get caught up in thinking that everybody that disagrees with us is attacking us, then when somebody disagrees with us because they're trying to show us another aspect to ourselves that we're not seeing, or they're trying to help us to not feel so anxious and trying to get us back into a healthy way of living, but we see that as an attack, then we're going to be stuck where we are, and we're going to have a rigid pattern of behaving, and that is going to probably turn into some form of abuse because you're going to try to control the world around you. That's what I'm really getting at with this video. So I would love to hear from you. What do you think about all of this? Are you somebody who's been through trauma? Have you seen these behaviors in yourself? Do you know what I'm talking about? Can you separate the difference between what I'm talking about? Because it seems like a lot of people maybe can't. Anyway, if you're new here, I do mental health videos Monday through Friday. Hit subscribe and hit the bell after you hit subscribe to get notified every time I do a video. I did put that recording up on Patreon, so if you're interested in a recording that helps you feel calm anytime that you need it, it's a 7-minute, little over 7-minute recording to kind of let you relax and feel a little bit better for those times when you are triggered. I have that up over on my Patreon page. Follow the link to get there. And as always, thank you for joining me and thinking about these topics with me.